Hi, welcome back everybody for another streaming Sunday. Today we're continuing our magical movie review for our Disney Princess series. So if anybody knows release dates, then you could probably already guess that the next movie up in our list is Beauty and the Beast from 1991. If you can't already tell from my ears and the makeup that I attempted to do today, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney film, like hands down. I love this movie so much, even to the point where I'm sitting there watching it with Adam and I just say, I love this movie, just in the middle of it. It's not even halfway over. It's just incredibly good, and we'll get into all the details of why I love it so much. But I think it really started with, sorry, Tina was just in here, so I have like cat hair all over my face. I love it so much, and I think that has a lot to do with Beauty and the Beast was my mom's favorite Disney movie while I was growing up. I was born in 1992, so I think she watched this movie while she was pregnant with me or around that time, so I think that has a lot to do with it too, why it's her favorite movie. And that was just something that we shared growing up. That and Toy Story. We both love Toy Story so much. So I think that's kind of where my fandom started with this particular Disney movie and Disney Princess. One of the Disney movies that I've seen the most, so that probably has a heavy hand in it as well. But today, there may be some bias there, just as a disclaimer before we jump into all the details and the origin story and everything like that. So this is definitely my favorite movie so far. Let's jump right on in. Of course, if you've watched my magical movie reviews before, you know that we always like to start everything out with our magical recap. This is my attempt to bring you the plot of Beauty and the Beast in 30 seconds or less. Go! Bella's super weird and the town knows it. Gaston wants to marry her, but she's like, nah fam. Her father Maurice goes off to the World's Fair, gets lost in the woods, stumbles upon the castle, gets captured by the Beast. Belle finds her father, takes his place, cut to Gaston singing about being the best. Inanimate objects take care of her. They also start coaching Beast on how to be a normal person and treat her right. They start flirting and dancing. Then she misses home. Beast shows her father in the mirror. Oh no, he's sick. Beast lets her go. Gaston starts the dance mob to go kill the Beast. He's almost successful, but Belle saves him. Beast basically dies, but Belle tells him that she loves him and he's magically a human again. Happy ever after. Okay, we did it. Alright, recap done. Check it off our list. Going through the movie, especially now, where every time I've watched it in the past, it's always been for fun, just like every other Disney movie. And now that I'm watching these back with a kind of movie review mindset, I'm noticing just a few more things and Easter eggs in the movies. But the way that I organize my thoughts are going to be with basically pros and cons, things I like, things that I thought could be better, or things that I have big question marks about. So we'll start with the first category, which is what I call magical moments. Magical moments are things about the movie that I love that I can't like get over because it's just so magical. First and foremost, if you guys thought I loved the Little Mermaid soundtrack, like, that pales in comparison to my love of the Beauty and the Beast soundtrack. This is hands down the best soundtrack in the Disney genre of animation movies by far. It's got all of our favorites, Be Our Guest, Belle, Something There, Beauty and the Beast, Gaston's song. Like, it's just all, they're all smash hits. Like, there's never going to be a moment where those songs don't automatically turn every room into Disney karaoke. It's just so good. Like, I couldn't help but sing along the entire time. Kind of going into that, Disney princesses, every Disney princess has a song that they sing. Belle, of course, has Belle, which is great, but then she also sings Something There with Beast, where it's kind of like they're speaking their subconscious thoughts. And that really means a lot to me, because for loving a princess so much, I like that she has multiple songs and she gets to showcase her voice, which I think is incredible throughout the film. We also get 2 villain songs. We get Gaston, the song, and then Gaston also sings Kill the Beast later on in the movie. So it's a little more exciting to watch the villain and him showcase his talents and his just sassiness throughout the entire film. Which brings me to the next magical moment that I love, which is Gaston as the villain. I think Ursula might be my favorite villain, but he's a close second, if not tied, for my favorite. And I think it's because we all know a Gaston in our lives. Man, woman, non-gender. Like, there is a person in our lives that thinks they are hot stuff. They think they can get anybody that they want, and they're just like so incredibly full of it. There's nothing special about him. He doesn't have any magic powers. He doesn't have any kind of like witchcraft going on. Like, he's straight up just a dick. Like, which I think is so incredibly funny, that we get so much enjoyment out of this person that's the villain in the story, and all he is just like a pompous ass. And so I love a new take on a different kind of villain, which is just like an everyday person that we all know that is kind of the villain in our own lives. Like, it's not very often where the villain is the handsome villager that's trying to marry you. In the past, like, all the other Disney princesses are like, oh yeah, like, that's fine, we'll get married because you're handsome. Where Belle's like, nah brah, you only like picture books, so I'm outie. Like, it's just so, like, the villain interaction and the villain story is fantastic. I love it so much. With that being said, the reason why I love this movie so much and why Belle is my favorite princess is because she is, and I know I also kind of hate using the term like strong female lead, but she is the most realistic Disney princess so far. While I love Ariel and I love her voice and just the fantasy around it, I love Belle because it's rooted in like her character, not the story, but like her character is rooted in so much like reality. Like, she's a pretty girl that's seen just like for her looks, but like she's super weird because she likes books and she's super smart. And she can hold her own in any kind of conversation that she's having. She, of course, cares what other people think because she has that moment of vulnerability with her dad where she's like, I just don't fit in here. I don't have anybody to talk to. Foreshadowing to her time with Beast and being able to have like conversation with him. She can walk around town, she could do her own thing, she doesn't really care, like she's got her nose stuck in a book and she's gonna finish that chapter, like if it kills her, or she's gonna walk off the ledge somewhere. So I love her so much. I think that she's beautiful, beautifully animated. I think she's a pretty princess, but also I see myself in her as a Disney princess of like, I'm just somebody normal, like a weird girl living in this town that people don't really understand. So that really resonated with me as a kid, even more so now as an adult that I'm watching it back, because she's just like quick wit, got people back, including the Beast. So I just really, really, really enjoy her character. Definitely my favorite princess. Just another overall magical moment for me is purely just the animation of the movie. The animation just keeps getting better and better, so that of course I think is just kind of gonna be a given. But specifically the scene in the beginning where Belle is walking out of her house headed towards the village, and she is walking down the path and there's actually depth of the scenery in the background, like the landscape is moving faster than the trees around her. Like there's and then like the houses show up and there's like shift in the visualization of her walking into the village. Like, just go back and watch like the first couple of minutes of the movie and you'll see what I'm talking about. Whereas everything has been so like flat laid and 2D, where like while we're not getting into like Pixar level quite yet, there's so much more depth to the animation where it feels real. Like we're getting more real with the animation and seeing the Imagineers' creation or creativity really starting to shine through. The other moment that like really got me as far as the animation and like being overwhelmed with how good it was, including the beginning, Beauty and the Beast, the song, and they're dancing in the ballroom and the camera pans up and shows the chandelier. I'm not entirely convinced that that wasn't just a camera shot, like a real camera filming a chandelier. That chandelier looks so incredibly real, and then it's like showing the cherubs painted on the ceiling, and those are fantastic. But the chandelier specifically looks so real, so crisp, that I was just like, wow, that's incredible. Like, that looks so good from like an animation standpoint. So those are my magical moments. Soundtrack, the villain, of course, having the realistic female heroine as a Disney princess, and just the overall animation are my magical moments. I loved all of it. I love everything about it. With this being my favorite Disney film, coming up with the things that I didn't like or the enchanting efforts was really hard. So this section is more of just like question marks for me, things that like I kind of do the head tilt for, the eyebrow raise of like, does that really like make sense to me? So really I could only come up with one enchanting effort, and that was the inanimate objects. So Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, like those things make sense because they're people. We have kind of a backstory, not a detailed backstory, but we know that those are people that were really close to the prince and now the beast, just kind of in the evolution of the story. But I was thinking about it specifically during Be Our Guest, when like they're doing like the dance routine and all of the silverware comes out, the plates, all this stuff. And in my head, like, they're dancing, so are the silverware pieces also people? Or is it just like magic? And if it's magic, who's doing the magic to make them do it? Because I know it's an enchanted castle, so there's going to be things that happen that aren't necessarily like people, but where did they come from and where did they go when the curse was lifted? I definitely just quoted a line dancing song, right? Where did she come from? Where did she go? Where did she come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Dumb. I don't know. That one's just still a big question mark for me. Like, literally where did they all come from? Like, because that's like if you're thinking of like the plates, the silverware, all of the knives that pop up at the end that are like helping them fight the mob. And during Be Our Guest, when she's like coming up at the very beginning, when she's sitting down, the chair like runs and like scoots itself underneath her. So like, is that a person? Did they not just have furniture before then? Or is it just like the chair is absorbing magic from the castle as a whole? That part just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's really the only thing that I could think of as far as like an enchanting effort that just didn't deliver for me, that still has like plot holes or just like open-ended questions. But other than that, in my mind, this movie is perfect. After going over all of my magical moments and enchanting efforts, of course I have to pick a very magical person or a VMP to represent a character that really stood out and was a a highlight for me. And for the first time in all of our magical movie reviews so far of the Disney Princess series, this is the first movie where my VMP is actually the title character, the princess, Belle. I love her. Like, I think she is strong-willed, she's witty as hell, she's so incredibly funny in a smart way, and while people always like joke around that the Beauty and the Beast story is like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, I don't think that's the case. Like, I always kind of thought about it in the same way, but she chooses to be there. Beast lets her go and she still comes back, and she's just constantly doing stuff for other people, which I find really enchanting in itself. Like, for example, when she tries to escape the first time and she and Philippe are like running through the woods and the wolves trap them. First of all, she gets a giant stick and she's like guarding the horse, when the horse could probably just like stomp on those jerks and like kill them in one like hoof press. But then the Beast shows up and saves them, and that's great. And like, she has the chance to run away and get on the horse, and you see her almost do it, but then she stops and she's like, you can see it in the animation, but she like kind of reassesses and she's like, he saved my life, like I have to take care of him, I have to return the favor. So I just like that whole sequence of events like really hits home for me, because I hope that I'm this way, but like I like to think that I'm a person that gives and likes to do things and does the right thing. Her as a character in general is not perfect, because she clearly doesn't make good choices all the time, but she does her best and she really does care for other people and taking care of them. So Belle is definitely my VMP for this movie. So now that we've got 5 Disney princess movies under our belt, before I dive into the origin story for those of you who aren't super into that kind of nerdy stuff like I am, but if you just want to know where these movies are in the ranking, right now, of course, number 1, we've got Beauty and the Beast. Number 2 is The Little Mermaid. Number 3 is Cinderella. 4, Snow White. And 5, Sleeping Beauty. Now, before I get anybody mad about the order, of course, this is just my personal opinion on how I rank these. But it also doesn't mean that I don't enjoy those other movies. And it's definitely getting harder and harder. Beauty and the Beast wasn't difficult to put at number 1. It's going to get harder and harder to rank these movies because I enjoy them all so much. So definitely comment below, let me know what your order is of these first 5 and see how we match up, because I'd really love to see if any of us like have the same list or like maybe a couple off. For all of you other nerds out there that really love kind of diving deep into the entire story of where we get to with these Disney movies, I did quite a bit of research for this one. I just love everything about this storyline, so I really wanted to learn more about where it came from. Of course, the obvious thing, just from the visual cues that we're getting from the movie, is this is definitely a French story. There is an argument that this is a pretty popular tale, so we can go back like many, many, many centuries and find similar stories, but everybody can agree that the most popular and like the quintessential story comes from, and please forgive me because I'm gonna butcher this French name, Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve, or Villeneuve is basically what I've seen, and I'll put that here so that you can actually see the name written out. But she published the story in 1740, and then from there we really see the evolution of the same story with minor tweaks here and there. So I read the entire story, and I put a link in the description below to the full story if anybody's interested in reading it. And much like all of the other stories, there's quite a few similarities between the original story in the Disney movie, but this one had quite a few differences as well. So for example, we start out, there's a merchant who's rich and has 3 sons and 3 daughters, so 6 children total. And they come into some kind of unlucky times, and they go from being a rich family to a poor family. And they're forced to move out of town into this little cottage in this just kind of crazy countryside. The father is trying to do everything that he can to kind of get back to where he was before and provide for his family. So the story really begins when he's about to go back to town, try to find the people that he did business with before and get them to do business with him again, essentially. So he asks all the children, like, what can I bring you? Like, what do you want? And he asks the youngest daughter, Bella, and Bella just says, like, I just want you to come home, that's my present. And of course the father loves that, but he's like, no, really, like, what can I get you? And she says, okay, well, you can bring me a rose from your journey. Simple request, pretty easy to pick up, shouldn't even need to spend any money on it. Of course, he goes on his trip, things are looking pretty bleak, the people that were doing business with him before aren't panning out, so he's on his way home. He kind of goes down some different paths that he's not normally going down, and he comes upon a castle, and he leads his horse to a stable, and on his way to the stable he finds roses, and he's like, oh yeah, like I can go ahead and cut one of these and take it back to Bella. Well, of course, that's the moment when the beast shows up. He's like, how dare you steal from me, blah blah blah. I let you come into my castle and wasn't gonna do anything, like I was leaving you alone, I was being nice to you, and basically it's like, okay, now you're stuck here forever, like you're my prisoner. And the old man somehow talks himself out of it, and he's basically like telling him just the truth, like, my daughter, this is for my daughter, she's my youngest, like she's beautiful and innocent. And the beast is like, okay, I will let you go, but you have to bring back one of your daughters to be my prisoner for forever. Like, somebody's gonna have to pay for this, basically. Of course, it's just terrible and doesn't really make any logical sense. Like, it's just a flower, bro. Like, let it go. So the father's like, kind of going back and forth. He goes back home, tells the sons and the daughters the story. And of course, the sons and the father's like, no way, like, we can't let anybody go back. The daughters blame Bella for what happened, because of course they sound like the evil stepsisters in every other story that we're used to. And Bella's like, you know what, you're right, like, it was an innocent request, but it's causing all this kind of misfortune, so I'm more than happy to go back and pay the price for this trouble. And so after just a lot of arguing, they all agree to let her do it, so she goes back. So she goes and stays at the castle, and day one, like, the beast is super nice to her, like, is treating her really well, but, like, off the bat asks her to marry him. So, like, this is kind of like your Disney brain is turning on, like, okay, clearly, like, he needs somebody to love him, to do something for him. But she's like, no, thank you, like, I don't really want to marry you. So she goes to bed that night, has a dream about this really handsome prince, and he kind of is giving her some warnings, like, be nice to me, like, treat me with respect, don't believe everything that you see, like, sometimes your eyes can be deceptive. At first she's just like, oh, it's just like a silly dream, prince, but, like, she keeps having the same recurring dream, maybe not the same activities, but it's the same prince over and over and over, and she starts having these kind of feelings for him. all the while, like during the day, the Beast is still constantly asking her to marry him, or like, do you love me? And she's saying, like, I care for you, and I would be sad if something bad happened to you, but I don't love you. And it's like kind of in the back of her brain, like, I can't love you because I like keep thinking of the handsome prince from my dream. So it's all kinds of love drama, and the Beast just wants to be loved, clearly, but so does Bella, and we're of course hoping that eventually they work it out. Well, she gets to the point where she is like, I miss my family, like I want to see them, and she goes to the Beast and she's like, hey, is there any way that you'll let me go home for 2 months and then I'll be yours forever, or come back and be with you forever? And the Beast, being a kind person, like he's been able to give her everything that she's ever wanted so far. So he's like, I can't tell you no. He's like, but like you have to come back when you promise, or else I might die. Seems a little dramatic. There's no explanation as if like, is this the timeline of the curse, or like, will you die of loneliness? Like, there's not really any explanation. He's just like, if you don't come back, I'll die. He says, take what you want, take all this stuff back to your family, like I don't need it. And he gives her this ring, and he's like, okay, when you're ready to come back, or the night before you're due to come back, twist the ring on your finger and say, like, I want to go back to the castle, or I want to see the Beast. Cool, like all set. She goes home, catches her family back up on what's going on, and like she has some thoughts about like, okay, maybe I could stay. But then she starts feeling guilty about leaving the Beast. She has this kind of like evaluation where she like looks at her sisters, and like apparently they've like become popular again somehow, like through riches or other means. Like who knows what these girls did to get on the good side. It didn't really seem like anybody really missed her all that much, and she felt kind of in the way and like an outsider, which is where I think that kind of connects back to the Disney version. Like she didn't really truly belong where she was, but she felt like she belonged with the Beast in some form or fashion. So she decides to go back. She twists the ring. She shows back up, and she can't find the Beast anywhere, and she finds him like lying down somewhere. She thinks he's dead, but then she realizes he's breathing, so she like throws water on his face and he wakes up. She's freaking out this entire time, and she tells him, she's like, I didn't realize how much I loved you until just now, like when I thought you were dead. And so like he's like, will you marry me now? And she's like, yeah, son, like let's get hitched. And so these magical things happen. This fairy shows up. He turns into the handsome prince that was in her dream. So it was kind of like, I don't know if he was actually visiting her in his dreams, or if she had like premonitions about this, or how it was supposed to happen. But like all of her dreams are coming true, literally. So she decides to get married and invites her family to the wedding, and they live happily ever after. So like the root of the story, there's still a moral to it, where like the beauty is found within, and it's really just about like finding true love in places that you didn't originally think you would find it. So I think there's a lot of correlation between this story and the Disney version. I find the Disney version much more entertaining because, I mean, like, even if we were just looking at the characters that are similar, like, not even thinking about Gaston, because there's not a Gaston type character in the origin story, but the Beast is more entertaining because he has a temper. So like he kind of just like throws himself around, like he acts like a beast, whereas this guy, like, he's just desperate to find someone to love him, and I think that plays more into the beauty is found within moral. Just because you look a certain way doesn't mean you have to act a certain way, or you're not deserving of love or whatever. I think that is put across better in the French origin story, but it's just more entertaining when you've got a beast that's like crawling around on all fours, and then he's like trying to learn how to human again. And also I like Belle more than Bella. Belle is just funnier, she's wittier, she's smart, both very sweet, both putting other people before themselves and really have this undying love for their fathers. And I think there's a lot of similarities there, but even the Belle part of it, I enjoy the Disney side of, or the Disney interpretation of that character more than anything else. But that's it. That's the origin story. Really, it's still very in line with just kind of some juggling facts here. I mean, the one thing that I've learned from the 5 different Disney princess movies that we've come to so far is its storytelling is all about just the approach, and even other versions of the same story, you're always going to pick and choose the parts that you like best to include in your story as the author, and then put your own little spin on it. So that's everything that Disney is doing. And there was a part of me that kind of thought at one point, well, there's no like just Disney story. Like, there's not a story with the Disney princesses so far that Disney came up with on their own. I think going into the origin stories and researching them as much as I have, I mean, not to the point where I'm spending days on end doing the origin digging, but Disney isn't the bad guy in that they're taking all of these stories and claiming them as their own. They're just putting a twist and popularizing stories that already existed, but that's already been, plenty of authors and fairy tale writers have done the same thing. Like Brothers Grimm, for example, a lot of their stories, they weren't the originators of that story. They just popularized it, and that became kind of the foundation to start from. So this has definitely opened my eyes to just a lot of Disney storytelling in general. But I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed doing the research and digging into everything. I hope you guys have enjoyed the origin story stuff as well. Definitely tell me if this is something that I should keep doing, or if you guys just want me to stick to the Disney magical movie review. Definitely want to hear just what is going to be entertaining for you guys, because of course I'm going to keep doing stuff that I enjoy, but there may be a different kind of spin I can put on it for you, or if there's any opportunities that I'm missing when I'm doing my magical movie reviews, definitely let me know. But thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'm hoping that you guys have some kind of magic happen here or there with just the mundaneness that can be our everyday lives. And I think the magical movie reviews from me have been a good way to just... distract is the wrong word, but it's more of just like kind of dive into a different world for a little while before I get back to my regularly scheduled program of my work week. Thanks again for hanging out with me. I have loved all the interactions from you guys so far, so keep it coming.